While you're doing that, have you guys heard of? I think
The meeting's, we're recording.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I didn't get the agenda open yet, but welcome everybody to the Backdrop Dev meeting for January 7th. If you don't want to be, we are recording this. If you don't want to be recorded, turn off your camera. But I think we all know that are here. Let's go ahead and do introductions first. Just your name, where you're from, and a quick anything you want to share. I'm Tim Erickson, St. Paul Tim, coming to you from Deerwood, Minnesota. The deer were here earlier. I'm doing my quick deer check. I don't have anything. We got a release coming up, and I'm excited about that. A lot of interesting work happening. Some of it didn't quite make it, but we'll be ready for 1.19. Nate, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Nate Lampton from Oakland, California. And yeah, we do have some very interesting things to cover. The things that didn't get in, there were several of them that were super close, and we'll talk about those. And yeah, I'm excited about some of the CI improvements that we've got coming in right now. So we'll be talking about those too. Phil, can you give us an introduction?
Hey, Phil Ward out of Wichita, Kansas. Basically a site builder. I'm here to just kind of provide any feedback where I feel like I can offer some assistance. Jen?
And I'm not sure if Jen will be able to give an intro. Oh, there she is.
I'm back. Jen Lampton, Oakland, California. Very excited about 118. Carry on.
Okay. I think that's everybody. So we have two new modules that have been released in the last week, I guess. Database search by Early Bird or Bug. Isn't that supposed to be Early Bug? Nobody knows. My apologies to Early Bird or Bug, but on the I thought it was Early Bug. But the release note said Berg. And we also have Pan Zoom Images by Jen. Thanks for those. I know there's some other issues or interesting modules I think coming in the way that I've seen some people working on. So it's nice to see the steady stream of contrib modules that continue to get ported. It looks like we have a note here to thank BW Panda too for his work on tugboat sandboxes. That might be old because I know he'd done that a while back, but it's still very valuable. And I know lately he's been doing a bunch of stuff on Backdrop. Or I think the forum site, like the last couple of days, he started doing some press releases or some pull releases. So thanks.
Yeah, the new enhancements there, I think include that he's setting up tugboat sandboxes for the backdropcms.org sites themselves. So every pull request we make against those projects will be getting sandboxes. So that's great progress there.
Yeah, we've certainly talked about that because there's at least one PR that for adding info to more information fields to .info files on modules. It's kind of hard to test the pull request, and I think the tugboat will help with that. So I can turn this part over to you, can I? Yep, from Quick Sketch. We can go talk about the project.
Sure. So, Feature Freeze has happened on January 4th, which was Monday this week. And that means that from here on out that's the next 8 days, Backdrop 118 will be coming out on January 15th. That's next Friday. But for the next week and 1 day, we will no longer be putting in new features, but we can still put in bug fixes. So the 117.5 is the next bug fix release that will also be coming out on January 15th. And if you're looking for something to do between now and the release of January 15th, of course, you can work on 119 issues. That will be the next version of Backdrop that will come out in 4 months. But if you want to get something in this next release that is coming up in the next 8 days, then putting your attention on the 117.5 milestone is where we can continue to put in bug fixes, and those will also end up in the 118 release. So we'll go over the 117.5 bug fix releases issues that we've got going on. This past week, we merged in the Civi CRM views integration fix that was related to MySQL 8 support. The issue is 4745. That is now merged in, so the next version of Backdrop will properly support database queries across databases again. So that fix is now in. We have a change to field set CSS in the 7 theme, the issue 4766. That change has also been merged to fix some of the display of our collapsible field sets in the administrative pages. And let's see, those are the only issues that we've got from the agenda that have been merged, but we have also merged in a number of other issues for 117.5 this past week. Some issues that we have been bringing up pretty regularly that haven't had a whole lot of progress include the site getting stuck in maintenance mode, issue 3956, a warning on the max input vars variable 3824, removing the block title for the search box 3476, views or behavior not acting quite correctly 3415, and then 2 issues removing blacklist and whitelist terminology from core 4441 and removing master slave terminology from core issue 4451. Whew. All of those issues haven't received any updates in the past week or a couple weeks, actually. I think either these issues need to start getting some attention, or we should start shaking up what it is that we bring up in our weekly calls every week, because these same issues have been dragging on for a couple of months now without a whole lot of progress. There are, let's see how many issues in the 117.5 milestone, 63 other open issues, 63 total open issues in the 117.5 milestone that could also all be getting attention. There are 22 fixed issues in the 117.5 milestone, though, so we've really been racking up some fixes as of late as well.
Can I bring up one in particular that I think needs attention in the meeting?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, so the front page to homepage in core, it's issue 2162, and I'm bringing it up because the last, I think you commented on it, Nate, was that you were a question whether or not there was consensus on whether or not to do it or not. We had a pull request that was RTBC. It is milestone for 1.175. Peter took away the RTBC status because there seemed to be mixed feelings about it. Mm-hmm. So what I've been trying to do this last week is to figure out if there is consensus, or where the consensus. This is an odd issue because a bunch of work has already went into changing. We've already changed some things from front to home, and this issue is kind of intended to finish that work. So I basically put some people on the spot and said, if you're not in, if you don't think this is a great idea, are you suggesting do we go backwards or do we stay in this intermediate step? And I think Peter in particular has said that he's in favor of this. Indigo Zella, I think, had expressed some reservations, but also acknowledged that the current status is the worst option. And I think would rather see us move forward than not do anything. So I'm just wondering what we need to do. If I understand correctly, the PR was ready to be committed, other than do we have enough consensus? And right now, I don't know of anybody who's, again, at least 1 or 2 people maybe aren't excited by the idea, but everybody seems to feel like it's better to move forward than not. So what do we need to do to get this back to RTBC? And I feel like that we'll have to talk about it in a meeting to really unstick this.
Yeah, in this meeting right now, or
Well, I don't know.
yeah,
Not
I
necessarily.
it's been a long time since I've looked at this issue all the way back in
Okay.
September, and there's been a lot of new feedback. It looks like since then,
Right.
regarding which way we should go with things.
I think the main feedback has been that this is a big deal for translators and that we need to be cautious about doing this kind of thing because a lot of it requires changes in translation. But then the follow-up feedback is kind of like we've already, started this process, and we add the needs translation tag has been added since that feedback came out. That wasn't on the issue. So I think the assumption is that if we did commit this, then we just need to really encourage people to update their translations.
Yeah, and
But-
yeah, there's also some the trending direction is towards homepage, correct? Like that's
yes.
the suggestion, and that's what the pull request
Yes.
does.
And part of the reason I bring this up is that there are a couple of other issues related to the homepage. And it's like every time I see these issues, it's like, well, that are about the homepage. It's like, well, are we talking about the homepage or the front page? Because right now we're in this limbo. So in some ways, I mean, to me, this isn't an urgent issue. It's just a frustrating issue because we're in this intermediary stage where some things say homepage, some people say front page, and it's like, what should I be using?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. The API side, I'm sure that there's lots of API things that we can't easily touch. Like there's the API function like backdrop is front page, the front preprocessed variable that's in all of the templates, or is front maybe, and then the front placeholder with the angle brackets. So yeah, this is again, it's kind of similar to actually, Tim, your issue on raw HTML versus full HTML,
Right.
where it's like we can change the label, but we can't change a lot of the back end for compatibility's sake.
Yep. Well, there's no urgency in doing this today, but I just want to get it on the attention of a meeting because I feel like the issues queue is totally bogged down. And if anybody can provide any additional feedback or reasons, it was RTBC at one point, and the only objection, there were technical objections raised. The question was, do we have consensus? And I feel like we're as close to consensus as we're going to get, unless somebody else steps forward.
Tim, if you feel like that issue is stuck, then the process would be to kick it to PMC to unstick it.
No, but I don't.
You're never going to get consensus. That's just not something you can do in an open source community.
Okay.
So if it gets to a point where there is a lock, our solution in the Backdrop community is to prevent burnout on developers. Right. We escalate that to someone else to actually make a decision.
But the current status isn't that there is nobody objecting to it right now. Inda Gazella raised some concerns, but also acknowledged that, in her opinion, it's going to happen and she's not standing in the way. So, and I don't know of anybody else objecting yet. That seems to be the reason that it's stuck, is because there wasn't enough consensus. So I don't know if we really need more consensus or if it needs to go to the PMC, unless Nate objects. Which
I'm
is
like
possible.
most people in this issue are
right.
all of the same mind, that they're like, well, it's not great either way, and I'm fine with the way that things are going. Basically, it seems kind of like what
actually, in my opinion, the consensus is that the way things are going is the worst outcome. That we're stuck with the worst option because we'd be happy with home or we'd be happy with front, but having this ambiguity about which we should be doing is the worst scenario, and that's where we're stuck right now. Is we're stuck in not knowing whether it's the front page or the home page.
Well, I mean, I'm saying that most of the comments here are saying that they're not opposing the pull request, which changes it. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So to me, there are other more stuck issues that maybe need to go to the PMC. I'm not sure this one does, but unless the core committers feel like that would be helpful to them if they're ambiguous about it and want us to take it to the PMC.
Yeah, things like this that are largely, I mean, I'm not sure if I would call it totally subjective, but largely subjective, like It's funny as a core committer, what I'm usually looking for is consistency and that things are working and that the code is written in a way that
Mhm.
matches everything else. But for something that's like this, that it's like, this is not really a code issue. This is
Mhm.
about terminology and user experience and stuff like that. It's really not a core committer's purview to like be an expert in that particular realm, I don't think. But maybe it is, like, as gatekeepers, kind of lots of odd responsibilities end up falling on core committers.
Well, unless you objected to the like there was too much in core that you felt like we could safely make this change. I mean, I almost feel like based on our normal processes, I could mark this RTBC again.
Mhm.
And really then it just falls back into your lap like Nate.
Yep. And I think as long as you felt, and I think I would agree with this, that we're all on the same page, there is no opposition, the functionality is working okay, then that is ready to be committed. I mean,
Okay.
everybody is in agreement that the pull request is better, I think, than the current situation.
Mhm. Okay. I'm going to mark it RTBC and see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it.
Okay. Great. One other issue that is in the 117.5 milestone is automated code style checks, which isn't really an end user feature, but it helps us in doing our own development on core. This year's 3213. I spent some time on it this week and got GitHub Actions working and actually running code style checks on pull requests. And there's a pull request there that is an example of the code style checks being run. I change one file in core and then it causes it to fail automated testing because the code styles is not up to date. This will open up all kinds of problems, honestly, because there's a lot of inconsistency where we're not following code style in a lot of files right now. And I haven't been able to get it to run just on the changed lines. It runs it on the changed files. So for something like a views file where views doesn't follow a lot of the coding standards and naming conventions, there's just a lot of stuff that needs to be updated. Changing one line in a views handler means that you have to change like 30 lines because a lot of views code style needs to be updated. I think that'll probably end up being the case for a lot of files, that if you change one line, the code style checks will run and then you'll have to change a whole bunch of lines. So how we want to handle that is going to be kind of an open question. It would be great if we could get code style across the board all to be matching, and where necessary, like you can ignore particular code style rules. But yeah, if we add in this new feature and it continues working the way that it does, we'll need to put forth some effort to like go across the whole code base and try to get as much of it as we can updated to match code style. So anyway, that's could use some looking at 20 or 3213. We also have a matching issue that we need a coder review module to get updated to a newer version of PHPCS. Joseph Flatt filed a pull request to get it updated. I filed another pull request that also gets it updated but uses a different approach. But both of them will get us to a point where we could start using those rules. And Core's CI would then be dependent upon coder review to maintain and update those rules as we go forward. Okay, let's move on. So 118 is of course the next version. It's coming out a week from tomorrow. There is a preview release out that came out on Tuesday You can get it from the Backdrop GitHub release page. There's a tag up there at the top, 118-preview. We have not made any kind of announcement or anything like that that such a thing is available, I don't think.
But we can, right?
But we can. Yeah, that
Okay.
would be great. The new features that are in the 118 preview are listed in the release notes of that that project on GitHub. And I also want to give another shout out to BW Panda because he created or set up a release notes tool that looks at the milestone after the milestone has been closed and automatically generates release notes now. So we no longer have to manually generate release notes. I'm so excited about that. It'll save us like an hour every time we make a release. And it's I also give a shout out to Spring, the Spring framework, the Java framework is where that tool came from. And it's awesome. Like it works really great. It's just a really easy thing to set up in GitHub Actions that maps our particular tags to categories, and then it looks at the milestone and pulls out all of the issues. It just works absolutely perfectly the way that we would want to generate release notes. It creates them just the way we would want. So really great automation there, and I'm excited about having that new tool for releases in the future. Let's see. Next up is just a note that the 119 milestone has been opened. The 119 milestone contains the issues that were bumped from 118. And unfortunately, that was kind of a lot of issues that didn't quite make it. Of those, the media library exposed file name filter got bumped 3293. The advanced caching functionality field has visibility condition for layouts and layout relationships all got bumped into the next release. Oh, and Gregory's combined the update pages all into one update page. So the combined update pages and the layout relationships both were so close. Like we could have rushed them and merged them in anyway, but there was like, you know, they hadn't received adequate testing yet, and there was still some outstanding feedback even on the day of code freeze. However, both of them are super close. We could probably get them completed, you know, within the next week or two, and then we'll have them ready for 119. Let's see. I don't really have much else to say about the current releases. If you want to get something into 118, you really should be looking at the issues tagged to UX because those are still allowed to get in during this code freeze period, or just work through the bug fixes that are currently outstanding, which are actually tagged with the 117.5 milestone. So yeah, I guess that's it for the core update. We have initiatives as well. Let's see, we have telemetry. Tim, I'm not sure if we have any updates on telemetry for this week.
Well, not for you, but for the viewing audience, I think we do, because I finally did some telemetry work like last Friday after the last dev meeting, but we talked about it at the sprint on Sunday. Unfortunately, I didn't prepare my notes. The telemetry had been kind of stuck on at least me being able to get in and test the work that Nate had done. I was finally able to do that. It basically seems to be working, but it's still unfinished. And there's some we couldn't get anything into 1.18 because there's some sizable issues that need to be resolved before we can get this in. We debated whether or not to try and get just even a non-working, or even a disabled version of the telemetry module in so that we could better test it. But I think we decided there was little value in that, and that we can probably do all the testing we need without that. So I do feel like we made a little step forward. Probably my next steps are to take better notes on the testing and make a checklist of what has to happen. And we talked about that again quite a bit on Saturday. So for example, I think the big decision some of the big decisions that have to be made is like how it's going to work out of the box, right? I think, is this module, whether it's enabled, how it gets enabled, or I think the big one we talked about was what do we do about existing sites? Because we can provide sort of a checklist or a checkbox or provide an option during the install process for new sites, but what do we do for existing sites? Okay. Anything else? But yeah, that's all I have for my report.
Nope. Well, yes, actually, that we could also, like, the state of the project module component seems like it's in a place that could already be merged into the project module and could be deployed to backdropcms.org, and that would make testing tremendously easier.
Sure.
So we also have that path forward that we could also pursue. But yeah, the telemetry core module won't be in 118, and we'll continue working on it through the 119 cycle.
Yeah, but I feel pretty out. There's no reason we shouldn't be able to get it ready for 1.19. We made quite a bit of progress this release cycle.
Yep. Okay. Well, without Luke here to do any update on Ready to Wear, I think that we can say that's kind of it for the initiative updates. Do we have anything just generally like unrelated Q&A? Anything that we'd like to discuss before we close out?
I'm just going to mention that it's the first of the year. We talked briefly about this in the outreach meeting, that last year after the release, we did some special meetings for sort of goal setting for the next year. Mm-hmm. And I'd like for us to think about how that went last year and maybe have some similar meetings for this year. But I don't know if we need to discuss that right now. Just start thinking about it and get it on our calendar.
Yeah, can you remind me when we actually did those goal setting meetings? Wasn't it 2 weeks after the release? Wasn't that when we finally got together to?
Right. Well, yeah, and they got postponed a little bit. I think it might have been early February before they actually happened, but I don't remember for sure. I could look that up, but I would. My memory is that they happened sometime in early February. That originally we scheduled them, but then didn't really publicize them, and they got bumped. So we put out the delay a little bit. But they did happen, and I think we had pretty good attendance. We had people show up that weren't normally at the meetings to participate in them, and I think we had some good discussions. What I mentioned in the last meeting is I think we need to maybe improve on like having some sort of an outcome from them over last year. Last year we did great brainstorming and discussion, but we didn't have a final product. I think at the end.
All right. Well, I guess we'll keep that in mind for the upcoming meetings, and we can continue to brainstorm, what those should look like and what the takeaways should be, like the action items that we, like where we document them and
sure
how we're going to organize, rally people to actually do the work.
Maybe next week we could get them at least get them scheduled.
Okay. Yeah, next week will be the day before the release. Sure. But usually, like the real rush has already happened. Like feature freeze this past week, that was the real crunch time, and probably what we have in the 118 preview is going to be really close to what we have in the 118 final release. So yeah, the next week is not particularly a very trying time usually. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for attending this meeting, and thanks everybody out there for watching. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
Oh, I have to end the meeting.